regular listeners know I'm a huge Supers fan, and one of the best Supers board games I've played is Kapow. Stay tuned to find out why.
Kapow was originally published by 2 Ton Porcupine, but was later picked up by Wise Wizard Games, who did some tweaks and re-released the game as a 2-box set. Kapow Volume 1 and Kapow Volume 2. Before we get into more details, I do want to thank Debbie at Wise Wizard for hooking us up with a review copy of both volumes. Specific thanks for insisting we take both volumes.
The original Kapow was designed by Larry Bagucki, Douglas Hetrick, and Carl Van Ostrand. This new version had some further design and development from Wise Wizard's Robert Doherty.
The first thing you need to know is that both volumes of Kapow, and that's with an exclamation mark, are nearly identical. They have matching component counts. The only difference is that each features a different set of 6 characters, 3 heroes and 3 villains. The second thing you need to know is that to play with 4 players, you need both sets. Oh, and based on our plays, you're going to want to play with 4. The game really shines at 4.
A single game of Kapow can last 30 minutes to over an hour, depending on luck, AP, player skill, and player count. Solo games, on the other hand, only take about 15 minutes.
There are a lot of icons in the game, and each character is very asymmetric, but the mechanics are rather simple. Learning to play is quick and easy. Learning to play well, though, that's something else.
Now, while the box notes this is for ages 12 plus, we think that's more based on small components than complexity. We can totally see younger kids enjoying this one a lot.
Kapow recreates a superheroic battle between unlicensed heroes and villains who are trying to knock out their opponents. This is done through dice-driven engine building that includes customizable dice. Roll your dice each turn and spend them to attack, defend, and upgrade your character. Play player versus player or combine sets to do a comic book style team up. You can even go Dark Knight and play solo versus any of the characters through a cool bot system.
Check out the components in this comic-based battler in our Kapow unboxing video on YouTube.
There you can see the customizable dice and a pile of different sides you can swap in and out. The non-customizable dice, each of the characters in both sets, the solid playing boards with their clear iconography, the box inserts, various tokens, and more.
Overall, the component quality here is really good. There are a couple things that could be improved, like the size of the player screens versus the size of the boards you have to put behind them, and the fact that I have a couple dice where one side doesn't quite want to stick, but overall, I was impressed.
Yeah, I have no complaints. I haven't personally had any problems with the dice sticking, though I know you have. I think it's easy to assemble them and take them apart, and everything is lasting really well. It's a well-made game.
Yeah, I think the size of the player backing boards is weird because it doesn't fit. And we did have one particular die where the side would occasionally not stick in. And that was frustrating because you never really know if you rolled it properly, if you rolled it blank, or if it fell off from it being on the side. But that being said, it's not the end of the world and it's easy to solve. A little bit of blue tack and do the job nicely.
So the standard way to play Kapow is a 1 versus 1 2-player game. While the components are set up to play hero versus villain, you're welcome to mix and match. Heroes can train against each other, and while villains are often at odds with each other. The rules include an introductory game where you don't choose characters. Now, we're going to skip over that and move right to the full game.
Each player chooses one of the characters to play and gathers the dice for that character. This is going to be a mix of non-customizable trait die in different colors and/or customizable action dice with a set starting face. All of this is indicated on each character's board, as is your starting health.
Both players place a screen in front of their player and character boards and roll their dice. Then they place these dice onto their boards to activate abilities. There are 4 types of abilities: attack, defense, power-up, and after power-up.
Now, attack and defense abilities have 2 sections, basic moves and kickers. To be able to use the kickers, you have to activate a basic ability first. You can't just use a kicker. Now, kickers modify the basic moves and can have any number of kickers on a single basic move. The important part to remember is you got to do the basic attack before you can make it better.
Yeah, I kept trying to skip that. That's bad. The power-up abilities let you improve your character, gaining new dice or die faces for your customizable dice, or letting you swap things around. After
It's
power-up abilities are used, when you think your opponent is powering up and do damage for upgrades, your opponent takes that turn.
Well, that's your thing. You have power up abilities and after power up abilities. The after power up abilities are used when you think your opponent's powering up.
Your opponent is powering up and do damage for upgrades, your opponent takes that turn. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There are also a couple of spots that let you re-roll dice and a spot that lets you heal. Plus, every character has their own set of unique abilities that fall somewhere in with the standard 4 types.
Now, once players have placed their dice, the screens are removed and you resolve all of these actions. The active player attacks first, totaling their damage. Then the defending player totals their defense and takes damage equal to the difference if above 0. If this damage is enough to knock your opponent out, you win. They also collect any defensive upgrades because many of the defensive abilities give you faces for your customizable dice, as well as preventing damage.
Next, the defender attacks back using the same system. Attack minus defense equals damage, and then they grab any upgrades. Then in turn order, players complete the power-up and after power-up actions.
At the end of each round, there's a cleanup phase. Here, players clear all of their dice on their boards and get to attach and rearrange the faces on their customizable dice. The game continues until one player KOs their opponent and wins. The player with the least health goes first the next round, with ties going to the villain.
When playing with 4 players, you split into 2 teams. Usually 2 heroes versus 2 villains, but again, you're free to mix that up. Players on the same team are free to talk, collaborate, and discuss where to place their dice, but can't actually trade anything or share their dice. Now, when spending your dice, you also need to decide who you're attacking and use a special arrow token to point at whoever you want to hit.
In addition, each team gets a set of team-up cards. These are placed between the players on the same size and are activated by each player contributing the appropriate dice to the cards.
If a player is attacked twice in the same round, their defense number counts for both attacks, but they only collect any upgrades once.
Teammates share a health pool equal to the total of each individual's character's health and the last team standing wins.
Now, you can also play Kapow, solo or cooperatively. Every single character can also act as an AI opponent. The back of the character's board show the actions they will take each round. After rolling your dice and placing yours, you then roll the AI's dice and work your way down their player board to activate their abilities.
For co-op, you play 2 humans versus 2 AI, and all attacks are done against the target with the most defense. All the other rules stay the same.
Note, there is no official way to play Kapow with 3 players.
So that was a super high-level overview that doesn't really give you an idea of the tactical depth of Kapow. This is really hard to get across just talking about it, but is really easy to highlight with the boards and dice in front of you. One important concept that I think is really important about this game and that I didn't get until sitting down to play it is that there's really never a terrible roll. There is always something valid to do, and even blank dice rolls are useful.
Almost every roll, you have more than one choice with how you're going to lay out. And yeah, it's pretty darn strategic. And yes, even blank dice are useful.
Yeah, unlike Dice Throne, for instance, which we've reviewed in the past, this isn't a Yahtzee game. Your dice are going to be spread out and placed, and there's any number of ways to arrange and rearrange. And when you're playing with another player, with a teammate, you might rearrange multiple times as you try and figure out different strategies and lay out plans on how to attack your opponents.
And then something else I don't think that really comes up when you're trying to describe the game, right? Or even when teaching the game, is the escalation that happens. This is an engine building game. And just like an epic comic book battle, things keep getting bigger as the fight goes on. Like at the start of the game, you're going to be sticking with basic attacks and defense, maybe a small kicker, and spending quite a few of your dice on improving your character. But then the last round, you might be pulling off an attack with 3 kickers and a multiplier, resulting in reducing the opponent's damage and doing half their health in one hit.
Yeah, I really like the way it ramps up, and it feels thematically superhero battle-ish, and there's also just something really satisfying about it.
Yeah, the asymmetry in the characters is really interesting as well, because some of them have, smaller things that they can peck away at people with, while others may not seem to be doing much, but they're actually building up for that big whopper after 3 rounds have gone by and they've achieved something that they needed.
And my favorite part of Kapow is the puzzle of figuring out the best use of your dice each turn. There are so many options that you never have a totally bad roll, and figuring out a cool way to use all those blanks in particular always feels very rewarding to me.
I have a little problem with AP with this game, and I felt much less guilty playing the solo version because I could just take my time to try and figure out the optimal way to lay out the dice without going, oh, I don't want to hold things up.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've noticed myself having a bit of AP on it because you know that there's almost, you feel like you're certain there's going to be a better way than what you chose the first way. You saw something and you went that way and you're like, well, but wait, if I do this, and then all of a sudden you're rearranging every single one of the dice you rolled, and you're going down a rabbit hole. And it's really easy to fall down rabbit holes of how to place the dice.
Now, another aspect of Kapow I like is, I guess, the bluffing element, the kind of poker thing, a little bit of social deduction of trying to figure out what your opponent's going to do. That is a big part of the game. Like if you think your opponent's about to spend all this time, all their dice on upgrading, then you make sure to use those after upgrade, after power up. Sorry, power up's the proper term. You think they're going to upgrade, you use those after power up abilities. Or if you expect them to throw a bunch of dice into defense, maybe you don't attack this turn and instead upgrade yourself that turn. Or it's getting near the end of the game. Do you just go for a huge attack and forgo defense whatsoever? Or are you better doing a balance? Like, I'll do about 10 damage, but I want to defend about 10. And that's all fun and interesting decisions.
Yeah, those turns where you decide not to attack and then you find out your opponent didn't defend. Oh, that is the worst.
Or when you're playing too. Or when you're playing teams and you both decide to team up and you team up on the person who's doing the defending and not the one who's left themselves open. And even just, making sure you're keeping track of what the other opponent's health is at, because you may have a really big move that will leave you super vulnerable. But if you're the weaker player and you're getting to go first, you may be able to knock them out and take the win before it matters.
Yep. Now, another part of Kapow I, of course, love, which Sean already called up, is that asymmetry, right? Because each of the 12 characters that currently exist in the game play differently. And it's impressive how varied each feel. And honestly, this applies to both sides of the screen. Like, it feels different playing each character yourself and deciding on where to use your dice and figuring out that, oh, this is a character I need to build up to do something, but also how different it feels depending on who you're facing. Which opponent you're playing against is going to change your tactics as much as which hero you're playing yourself.
And that hero you're playing is going to feel different against different characters. Like the level of variability there is just massive.
Yeah, it's interesting. And surprisingly, while there are a couple of sort of serial numbers filed off, we know who that is. Not all of them are. They are unique creations. And I mean, some of it is just a matter of there are certain archetypes in superheroes where you're going to get, the tank or what have you. But they really have done a nice job of creating 12 unique and interesting characters.
Now, while I enjoyed all my 2-player games of Kapow, like it's a solid dueling game, the game really showed its strength, though, as a team game. Creating a comic crossover battle was a ton of fun. Now, one of the big advantages here is the fact this is a puzzle game, right? Having another brain to work with is nice. There are a lot of ways to use your dice. And just like any puzzle game, having a teammate to point out things you missed can be very useful.
Yeah, I love the way the 2 boxes interact. I mean, even just having 12 overall characters to play, let alone the team play, is a reason to pick up the second box, but the team play is so solid.
Yeah, absolutely. The first time I played it was just one-on-one, and it was a fun game. But I don't think it shined as well as it could have. But then when we sat down and played that team player game, it was all in. And it was just a totally different experience that was night and day above what was already a good experience. It became, I think, a really kind of a great experience.
Now, I was also impressed by Kapow as a solo experience. I think it works very well as a solo single player game because of that puzzle aspect. The entire AI system works well. It's not too fiddly. And I like the way you have to spend all your dice before rolling for your opponent. So you don't know things like, are they going to defend? Are they going to attack? Or are they going to level up? Now, I will say the AI seemed to be gaining faces and dice way quicker than I could. But maybe it was just who I fought against. I do love the fact that basically every single character, all 12, has their own solo mode. Like, that is a ridiculous number of possible combinations to play as a solo experience.
What I loved about the solo is that the AI just made sense. I never had to go look something up. I think this is the first solo game I've ever played where I wasn't consulting the rulebook. Everything laid out made sense, and it just played like, well, if you already know the game, it all just made sense based on the iconography and the way you play the game. And I will say that possibly the dice coming quicker than you could keep up was just the randomness of the game, because that didn't happen in my play. But yeah, I really liked the solo play. And as I said earlier, I liked the fact that I could sit and stare at it for a while and think out the optimal move.
Yeah, it's kind of nice in a time where so many solo games are trying to give that deep, complex experience and putting in the automas and decks of cards and alternate versions of this and that and the other thing. This just kind of plays straightforward and the way you expect it to, like another game, but without another person in front of you, just a card that's telling you what to do.
Our biggest concern with Kapow are the customizable action dice. Sean called out one die, but I know I have at least two. Right from the start, I found at least two of my dice had at least one side on them that doesn't hold the faces as well as the others. Now, currently, when that one of those comes up, I just swap it for one of the other dice, right? Or if I do end up, I have to draft that dice, I'll just, whatever problematic side where it falls off, I'll fill last. My big worry, though, is I'm just kind of concerned this will get worse over time. Like, so far, it hasn't happened. Those loose dice started that way and have stayed that way, but I do worry with where this could become a bigger problem. Now, to Wise Wizard Games' defense, they specifically pointed out they have demo copies of this that have been played far more times than your average gamer would play a copy of the game, and their demo copies are still fine. So I just think I got some bad luck on a couple dice.
Yeah, it might just be like a quality control issue. I will say I find snapping the pieces in note really easy. They don't stick. So, I mean, falling out and being loose being a separate issue. Like I said, I did not experience my games because I just happened to not get the loose die. But they're easy to take in and out.
Yeah, they do provide you with a little tool to pop them out if you don't have nails. But if you do have nails, I've never had a problem getting them in or out. The problem really does come, though, when that one piece drops out as you roll, because that kind of breaks that turn, which can be really unfortunate. Do you just roll again, like reassemble it and roll again, or what? Because you never necessarily know where that piece has fallen off from, and you have to deal with that.
Anytime it's happened to me, it's always been obvious. I'm like, well, that side's not up because another side's up. So it must have been one of these blank sides. So I just reattach it and keep going. But I'm sure it could come up, especially if I have lots of action dice. Overall, I really liked Kapow since my first play. First play was with Gwen at one of our barbershop bar game nights. I found every game was close. We never knew who was going to win until the very end. I love how different each character plays and feels, and they seem well balanced. I would have been happy with this game as a 2-player only dueling game, but I was shocked to discover I really like it at 4 players and even playing solo. Kapow is a big hit for me, and I'm so glad Debbie convinced us to take both volumes to try it out at 4 players.
Well, if you
I super enjoyed this game, and I am looking forward to trying to find time to play it solo again.
Well, if you like superhero games, Kapow is really solid. It feels tight and thematic. While it may not feature licensed characters, the characters that they have created fit most of the standard tropes and are pretty cool. The escalation here is what really makes this game feel like an epic comic book battle.
If you dig dice games and love trying to figure out the best way to use a bad roll, you're probably going to love Kapow. Same goes for puzzle game fans who like trying to find the ultimate combo or to squeeze one more point of defense or attack out of your limited resources. On the other side, though, if you don't like conflict in your games, you're probably best staying away from Kapow, though you may be interested in the solo or cooperative gameplay modes.
The same thing goes for players who hate the randomness of dice. This game involves a lot of dice rolling. That said, as we mentioned before, there's never a point in Kapow where you can't do something with your dice, and even rolls that seem bad can turn out quite good. But if you don't like not being able to use exactly the move that you want to use when you want to, this one's probably not for you.
Now, before we go, I want to spend a moment comparing Kapow to another dice-driven superhero battle game we reviewed recently and that Sean mentioned earlier, and that is Marvel Dice Throne from the Op. I think it's very hard, if you played both these games, not to compare them. And I encourage anyone who hasn't played Dice Throne to check out our review. Now, personally, I enjoy both games. I love how each does its own thing, and it's kind of fascinating because these are both dice-driven super battlers that feel very different. Both really nail the game balance, and both feature asymmetry, which you all know is something I love. Now, what I think Marvel does a little better is theme, but that's just because it features Marvel characters, and the gameplay and mechanics for each character makes you feel like you're playing that character. Like, just try playing Loki in that game, and you're going to get it. Other than that, though, I personally prefer Kapow. In addition to the asymmetry, I love the engine building. I love engine building games. And while there are the upgrade cards in Marvel, you don't really get that feeling of escalation that you do with Kapow. Plus, I love the puzzle aspect of Kapow. Getting that seemingly bad roll and making it work just feels great.
I think where Dice Throne wins is it has the Marvel IP, so it's easier to sell people on. You show them, hey, you get to play Loki, and it's easier to get them to the table. And I do think that maybe the comic book feeling, it gets that one better for me, the feeling of comic book characters. But when it comes down to the gameplay and the engine building aspects, I also think I prefer Kapow.
Yeah, this one's tough for me because I really do enjoy both of them. But they do sort of scratch different itches, I guess, is one way to look at it. I mean, for one thing, with the Marvel Dice Throne, you also have the ability of going down the adventure path if you do want to do solo play and things like that. Whereas otherwise, you don't get the solo. You don't have the co-op. You do have team, but and melee. You can do you can do 3 players of Dice Throne, which you can't in Kapow. But again, that engine builder is a really nice feel in Kapow. Like, that is really the selling point. That is what you're going for, is that escalation throughout the battle until finally someone does something that knocks out all of the remaining hit points you've been trying to eke out.
Marvel Dice Throne and Kapow are 2 superhero games. There are tons out there. Well, it's not as common as, say, zombies or farming. There are a number of different choices out there. And what I want to know is, what's your favorite? I want to know if we played it yet.
Leave us a comment wherever you found this review and let us know about your favorite comic book inspired board games.
Our kryptonite is caffeine. If you enjoyed this review, and it helped you learn a bit more about Kapow, or better yet, convinced you to pick it up, how about you treat us to a coffee at ko-fi.com/tabletop bellhop.